It's time to talk. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk with your boy Carl E. Long. Welcome to episode 60 of the podcast. Hope you're having a wonderful day today, or hope you're having a wonderful week. Summer's almost here. Everybody's starting to get their vacation on, so we hope that is part of your regiment. And I'm so glad that you're tuning in today. Yes, that's important. So, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. This is a really tight, tough conversation to have today, but I want to have it anyway. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff here today. The whole Voting Rights Act thing has been still kind of just resonating through me because of what it meant to us as Black Americans, and to have it just so cavalierly just thrown apart like nothing is still just holding a knife to my chest about, really? Is this really happening? But guys, it is. It is really happening in real time. And it's kind of frightening. So there's a lot of noise out on social media. People feel all sorts of ways. It's kind of polarizing, and it's inspiring, and it's also scary because I listen and get to see kind of both sides of what's going on. And to hear the opposition speak is alarming. It really is. So here it is. It appears to me, if I have to say it in a way that makes sense to everybody, it appears to me that white folks, I'm going to say it just like that, have decided that we don't need all these protections anymore because they're doing the right thing. So let's take all that crap out of the Constitution and just be regular people because we can all live together. That's what they think. But, I've always said this, and I still say it all the time. The only reason why we as African Americans, Black Americans, have been able to thrive in this country is because the federal government put in laws in place just so that we could live like normal human beings. And that is the Voting Rights Act is part of it, the Civil Rights Act, the Housing Act, those things, education, those things allowed us to be human. And they were only put in place because we had a lot of people who would not do the right thing. So now you're screaming, we are doing the right thing now. We don't need those things. We've had a Black president. Yeah. So I guess Obama is the measure of things are all right because we were able to elect a Black president, so things are right. And I'm going to say this, I'm going to say it again. Just when the Voting Rights Act, Civil Rights Act, Barack Obama was elected, there was a whole quadrant of you that did not vote, did not care, did not agree with any of those things. Him, the president, or those amendments. And those people are still here. And they are still fighting to have a voice and be the people that they always were and aspire to still be. And I'm talking about the big WS word, white supremacy. I mean, there are people that are still here like that. Yeah. So I wanted to go through and just talk about a few things. So today's episode, the title is, it's going to be based on Clarence Thomas mostly. I'm going to have to talk about him a little bit. But today's episode title is episode 60, Clarence Thomas, The Voting Rights Decision. America is Speaking Out. Now, the reason I put it on him is because having a Black Supreme Court justice that took the great Thurgood Marshall's place as this one in its place is just a slap in the face to Black people. And I don't think that Anglo-Americans understand the type of Black Republicans that we deal with. I heard one political pundit say, well, we got Blacks that are running for Republican and all. They don't understand the level, or I should say the visceral of those people that are running in the Republican do not have our same values. Unfortunately, if I had to say that a Republican that I agree with, it would be a Michael Steele Republican. Michael Steele, who used to be the chairman of the Republican National Convention. That's the Republican. My father was very conservative. There's nothing wrong with being conservative, but MAGA, you know what? MAGA ain't nothing but the Confederacy, guys. It ain't nothing but Jim Crow. MAGA is not what we aspire a conservative Republican to be. The real ones are being ousted out by Donald Trump. So they don't exist anymore. Or they're hiding from plain sight. I don't know. But what we have right here, it's not the real thing. It is not the real thing. So I get a lot of stuff in my algorithm about politics because I do my podcast and I blog and I watch a lot of stuff. So I get a lot of stuff in my algorithm about politics. And so one of them, and I know a lot of these plants are AI and sometimes foreign countries, who knows? They're just trying to make us divided even more. But there was one that said, it says, question, do you believe that Barack Obama is the reason we are so divisive right now? I was like, really? That's a question? So I had to look it up. I had to find out. Why do people think that Barack Obama was so divisive? He was more divisive than any other president. That's what they're saying. Really? I can't believe that. So I looked up what they said. So some conservatives felt Obama emphasized racial issues in ways they believe deepened divisions rather than healed them. A key example is often mentioned in his comments around incidents involving policies and race. So you remember the Henry Gates deal when he held the beer summit when Henry Gates was arrested at his own house and how Barack spoke about it and said the police acted stupidly. So they got upset about that. And then there's, of course, Trayvon Martin when Barack said that if he had a son, he'd look like Trayvon. Critics felt he took sides. Took sides? A kid died. He just happened to be black. What's so taking sides about that? And Barack Obama is what? Black. And then the responses to the unrest in places like Ferguson after the police shooting of Michael Brown. Conservatives often believe the administration inflamed anti-police sentiment, and supporters argued Obama frequently called for calm and lawfulness. So those are three of the main reasons why they consider he divided. 3 reasons. He spoke with compassion. He spoke from the point of view of being a black man. He can't be anything other than that. So that's being divisive. I'm going to act like I'm not black when I see a kid that could be my own son die. No, I'm going to speak about it. If that's being divisive, y'all don't know what divisive is. I can show you that. Yeah, we can show you that. And let's read the other. For some voters, Obama represented broader demographics and cultural change in America, increasing diversity, immigration debates, and changing attitudes on race, religion, LGBTQ plus rights, and national identity. Political scientists and historians have argued that backlash of these changes, not just Obama's policies, helped fuel later MAGA politics. Conservative talk radio, cable news, and online media frequently portrayed Obama as divisive, elitist, and anti-police, anti-American, or hostile to traditional values. Now, if you know the same Barack Obama, I know he's none of those things. I've actually seen videos where Barack Obama, is calm and is accepting and is loving that he is. Walk into conservative spaces and talk to them like they're just anybody else. And they couldn't help but shake his hand or take a picture with him, even though they didn't vote him or could care less about him, because that's the kind of man that he was. And y'all can't deal with that. So I'm believing that a lot of this stuff is all because we elected a black president. That's where the Tea Party came. That's where MAGA came from. Because y'all could not get over that. If we're so equal, then that shouldn't be a big deal. Y'all say we're ready. We don't need these laws and whatever. So that's where I'm at with this whole thing. And it's hurtful. Because you think about it, a lot of people don't understand the black experience, and we don't expect you to if you're not black. But you got to understand when things are right and when things are wrong. Wrong is we couldn't live places we wanted to live. Wrong is we couldn't go to schools like you wanted to go to different schools like you did. Wrong is we couldn't vote without having to guess how many damn jelly beans was in the bottle. Do y'all see how many wrongs have been done to black Americans? And for you to remove those protections and tell us we don't need them anymore because we've grown. You have not grown. Not a bit. Some of you. And let me make this preface by saying, of course we have progressed. Black people are doing well. We're having businesses. We're having our own neighborhoods. We are getting good jobs. We're doing a lot of things, but we're still not there. And we're not asking for a handout. We're asking for things to be equal. That's it. Equal. We can do the work. We are quite talented people, and we can do the work. But it's got to be fair. It's got to be fair always. All right, so we got to have a real conversation tonight. And I already know some people may not agree with everything I'm about to say, and that's okay. Because on my show, we talk about uncomfortable stuff. We ask hard questions and we think for ourselves. I want to talk about somebody who may be one of the most complicated black men in modern American politics and law. And a man a lot of people respect, a man a lot of people criticize, and honestly, a man a lot of people just don't fully understand. And I'm talking about Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas. The man they decided that was going to replace the great Thurgood Marshall, Clarence Thomas. That was such a slap in the face to black people. Y'all don't even know. This ain't going to be a hit piece. I'm not trying to come in and talk about the brother because I already have a feeling about him some kind of way. And that feeling is like, I feel nothing for him. I don't have any respect for him. I'm not here to disrespect him, but I'm just here to understand what is wrong with this man? Because this is what I struggle with. How does a black man who grew up during segregation become of the strongest voices against so many modern civil rights protections? I mean, here's a man that came from Gallagher, Georgia, who didn't even speak the language. I mean, he spoke that Gucci, I can't think of the name of the Gallagher. It's the island off of Georgia. And this man, it comes from the deep south where they did not care about him whatsoever. And he did well for himself. He rose up out of it through affirmative action. And I mean, this is what he got. So because he got that, he feels like that he could have gotten it on his own. And because you got it because of affirmative action, a lot of the places that you got to be judges and whatever, and in Yale school, Yale College, University, you wanna punish all other black people because you don't think that was fair? Okay, we don't think it's fair either. But they weren't doing the right thing, Mr. Thomas. That's why you were able to go to Yale. That's why you were probably just as good as any of the other students. You were, probably. I've heard you speak. You can speak. You're a smart man. But your mind is messed up about civil rights because the way that you vote and the way that you speak about it alarms me to no end. I mean, actual stuff people march for: voting protections, affirmative action, desegregation, programs meant to open doors for black folks after those doors have been slammed shut for generations. How does somebody live through that and end up seeing things so differently? That's what we're going to talk about. Now, first you got to understand where Clarence Thomas comes from, because whether we like it or not, our experiences shape us. Clarence Thomas was born in Pinpoint, Georgia, back in 1948. That's the name of the town, Pinpoint, Georgia, in the segregated South, deep poverty, And life wasn't easy. His father left early. His mama struggled to make ends meet. And eventually he and his brother went to live with their grandfather. That's kind of the black experience a lot. We know that, okay? Nothing strange yet. He's still kind of normal. Now, by almost every account, his grandfather was tough, old school tough, strict, hardworking, no excuses from what we know. That man had a major influence on Clarence Thomas because Thomas grew up learning something that would shape how he sees the world. Basically this: don't depend on nobody, work hard, handle your business. That was my daddy. My daddy taught me the same thing, but he would never go against his own people. My father hated anything to do with welfare and all this stuff. That was my daddy. Black people are mostly conservative, but we don't just give away our civil rights. We know the struggle. My mom and dad came from Louisiana, which is one of the most racist states in the country. Still, a lot of laws there are still not changed in Louisiana. But that's what my dad taught me. I think most of us can respect that mindset. A lot of black families were raised that way, especially in the South, especially by parents. We worked, you pushed through, you didn't complain. But here's where it gets deeper, because somewhere along the way, Clarence Thomas started believing that government programs based on race don't help black people. He believed they actually hurt them. And that's where you see things start getting complicated. See, many of us look at civil rights protection and say these programs exist because discrimination existed. Make sense? That's what I believe. If people were blocked from schools, jobs, housing, voting, then maybe government has some responsibility to help level the playing field. That's how a lot of people see it. That's how I see it. Because if we didn't do that, they weren't going to do the right thing. They were not going to do the right thing. Guys, we went from Reconstruction, where we had black congressmen and senators and things in government, to Jim Crow. Does that make any sense? We were progressing and they said, no. Kind of what's happening now. That's the way I feel. Kind of what's happening now. So a lot of people see it that way, but Clarence Thomas, he sees it differently. He believes race-based programs can actually become insulting, like society saying you couldn't make it without special help, and for him, that's a problem. So what? I don't care what you say. I'm here. Where is my... Yeah. I am here. And if that's the one thing that made you this way, Clarence, that's just ridiculous. So they said it. So what? You got the job because you deserve the job. You wouldn't have got the job without it. But there you are. And you could have done something so much better for us than what you've done. You are an embarrassment to the black race. You are an embarrassment. You're a disappointment. So Clarence Thomas graduated from one of the top law schools in America. But here's the thing. He later said something really interesting. He believed people looked at his Yale degree and assumed they only got there because of affirmative action. Think about that for 1 second. So, okay, all right, imagine working hard, earning your degree, putting in the work, and letting people looking at you like you probably didn't deserve to be here. That'll mess with somebody. I mean, and it does. I mean, they'll say that kind of stuff, but we don't care. You can say how you want to. They say it right now. The only reason why a lot of these black women were in power, they said because of DEI. No, because they were qualified for the jobs. They were qualified. And study after study has proven nobody black was put above any people just because they didn't have the skills. You had to have the skills. You had to have the skills. And trust me, we had the skills. We always had the skills. None of us are trying to be doctors and lawyers and go to Yale if we're not smart enough to do it. Why would I do that? Okay? So I guess that will mess with somebody, but Clarence Thomas account, it messed with him bad. I mean, he became deeply resentful of affirmative action, not because he thought racism didn't exist, but because he felt those policies caused people to question his intelligence. It ain't all about you, buddy. We're talking about the American people, and you still worried about that? His worth ethic, his legitimacy, and honestly, whether you agree with him or not, I don't think that part matters. What embarrasses us? What wounds us? That stuff stays with us, and I really think Yale changed Clarence Thomas. I do. Into a monster. A monster who forgot where he came from. He's forgot. All right, so now there's things starting turning into Supreme Court decisions. So here we have Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court, and he's got this mindset. And all these civil rights challenges are coming to the Supreme Court, and he votes almost, I think every single time he votes the opposite way a black person would vote. Not even one time, Clarence. Because Thomas didn't have opinions about affirmative action, he got power to rule on it. And when the Supreme Court looked at race-conscious admissions, Clarence Thomas made it very clear where he stood. He basically believed the Constitution should be colorblind, meaning government shouldn't see race at all. Woo! That drives me crazy. We would love for the Constitution and people not to see race at all, but you do. But you do. What else do we have to prove to say that? Mr. Thomas? God. I mean, if America used race for hundreds of years to hold black people back, how can you suddenly say race can't be considered when trying to fix the damage? That's the question. And Clarence Thomas' answer is basically, the solution to discrimination is not more discrimination. Now, you may agree with that. You may disagree, but at least you got to understand how he got there. Because if you don't understand this man's story, you'll never understand his decision. I don't care if you understand him or not, but I'm just trying to tell you, this is how this man got here and is voting this way. One decision, because they think you didn't earn something. Do you not know your own worth, Clarence Thomas? That somebody says, well, you only got this job because you're black, and that drives you that bad, well, prove them wrong. That's all you got to do. Now, we got to talk about voting rights, and this is where things get controversial, because when it came to protecting black voting power, Clarence stood on the opposite side of many of the civil rights groups stood, and he didn't vote right. He's the reason why we're here. And people are outraged with him. They're outraged. So I'm going to play you some videos here. I'm going to pause on some and let you hear some of the videos that are out there. And these are not black people. I wanted to get some people, white people here, who are outraged on Clarence Thomas. Here we go. First person. Here we go.
If Clarence Thomas isn't an Uncle Tom, then why did he shut the door that he used himself to get to his position for millions of black people across this country? Because by revoking the 1965 Voter Rights Act, he has done exactly that. He has basically burnt the same bridges that he used to get to his successful point for everybody else that's in the same position that he was once in. So my question still remains. Is Clarence Thomas considered an Uncle Tom? Are you going to say that I don't have a right to ask this question? I'd like to hear what you have to say in the comments. But what I do know right now is that he is more voting for his class than his culture, because his class is that of the 1%. He believes that he deserves to go to that island because there's allegations of him going there. He believes that he's a part of an elite group rather than remembering the culture that brought him up. Now, I can't speak to that culture, but I can respect it. And I still can't imagine that someone of that culture would then burn the bridges that helped him get to where he wanted to go for millions of black people across this country. How is that possible? And why isn't there a battle cry asking for his resignation for what he's done to his own people?
I hear you, brother. No battle cry. We haven't done anything. There's people that have called for his impeachment and everything, but we're just as baffled as you are. And yes, you can call him an Uncle T. You just did, so there you go. I don't think you're out of order for doing that. If you know what that means, we'll look it up. You can look it up.
Here's a guy who, by his own admission, and there should be no shame in this, by the way, got into Yale Law School because of affirmative action. I think that was fabulous. I think nothing wrong with it. He apparently is ashamed of it, so much so that once he became a jurist on the courts, he decided his first and foremost obligation, apparently, was to help usher out the very programs that had opened the door for him. I'm not sure how to think about that except to believe that that is someone who does not have a problem with the system of white supremacy that marginalizes other black folks, as long as he got his. And he got his, and then he got out and basically said, that's it, we're done with that. I think if you look at his rulings, and particularly if you contrast his behavior as a judge and as a justice with the man he replaced on the court, Thurgood Marshall, it's very interesting to see that one of the greatest jurists in American history when it comes to civil rights and when it comes to human rights and progressivism was replaced by one of the most reactionary justices, because George H.W. Bush knew that you had to replace the black justice with another black justice. He didn't want to replace him, however, with the black justice that had a connection to the movement, that had a connection to the struggle. So he found one that had no connection to the struggle, and if anything, was ready to spit on the struggle. You look at what Clarence Thomas has said in these voting rights cases. He is perfectly prepared, apparently, to uproot the Voting Rights Act of 1965 because he thinks, as do many of his white colleagues, that we can trust the states that have a history of racism to just do everything right, which of course is absurd. The only reason they've been doing things right lately is because there's a law in place that forces them to do things right. And as Justice Ginsburg said, to say that you can get rid of that law just because it's working right now is like saying that I don't need my umbrella when it's raining because I'm not getting wet. Now, you're not getting wet because you got an umbrella. That's why.
See? You hear what he said there? Clarence Thomas says that we can trust them. We cannot trust them. Are you looking at any of the stats in the South? Any of the stats in the South? Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. All right, here's a third person. Let's listen.
Clarence Thomas never misses an opportunity to disappoint me. In a 6-3 decision today, the Supreme Court voted to dismantle the Voting Rights Act. 6 conservative justices, including Clarence Thomas, voted to disenfranchise millions of black voters, voters of color all across America. And all of them should be held accountable, don't get me wrong here. But specifically Clarence Thomas, being only one of 2 black justices, the only black man on the court, votes to dismantle the voting rights of his own community? The same community that worked for decades to uplift black voters and black voices in our government votes to then go undermine all of that work. That's despicable. Am I surprised? No. Am I disappointed? Always. But this issue just really blows my mind. The cognitive dissonance he can have sitting on the highest court of the land, never has to worry about getting elected, makes a decision that makes it so much more difficult for black voices to be amplified in our government. Shame on you, Clarence Thomas. Shame on you.
Now let me explain this type of black person and Republican, because everyone probably has one in their life. And if you look at any pictures of Clarence, he's always with his Anglo persuasion. He just has pretty much ousted out his black life. I don't know that to be true. I mean, he has probably family or whatever. I don't know. But every picture you see him with, socializing, he's always with his Anglo brothers and sisters, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I have Anglo brothers and sisters as well. But when you have totally disowned a people, number one, they're not very accepting. If Clarence Thomas were to walk into a black church, I don't know what would happen. I really don't know what would happen. I don't know what would happen because we all know what he's done. He wouldn't be welcome. I mean, black people, though, are very welcome, but we don't forget. We've welcomed in some of our enemies to the worst places or the best places. We reach out to people. That's just who we are. So, those are just 3 of white guys I found out on TikToks, and there's more. So here's the outrage. Let's stay on the outrage kick. Here's a lady that's outraged by the whole voting rights thing, and I'm glad the noise is out there. And I'm glad that it's coming from my Anglo brothers and sisters, because it is wrong, guys. This is wrong in so many ways. Let's see. Here we go.
Even begin to imagine how tired of us black people have to be. After the Supreme Court did what it did today, I don't see how any American could stand by this. But I can only imagine how sick to fucking death of us they are. I don't blame them. I'm sick of us. I'm sick of you racist, bigoted jerks who think stuff like this is okay. The Voting Rights Act. People shed blood. They felt so strongly about being able to vote as they should have that they were willing to spill their blood for it. When have the majority of us white people ever felt that deep about anything? I've never been more disgusted with the conservatives. I've never been more disgusted with the religious groups that continue to stand behind this racism. You racists are poisonous. You're pure poison. And as far as our leaders, this just proves they're not done with Trump. It proves over and over again that they're as racist and as bigoted as he is. It runs so deep, I don't know how we'll ever get rid of it. We have to fight this. These midterms are vital. We've just got to flip this whole nation. We've got to. There's no other choice.
No other choice. And those videos like that, they really inspire me, because at least we have some people in our corner that's out there helping us in our corner. I really appreciate that. It does warm our hearts, and I see a lot of us in the comments saying, thank you. Thank you. We appreciate you doing that, because we can rant it all day long, but they're going to listen to us. Thank you for passing this word and showing just how much as outraged as we are on this. So let me let you listen to another lady. She's apologizing for the Jim Crow 2.0 that's happening right now.
For 2026, and we're back to a Jim Crow South. You think we would have learned something? We didn't. You know, I'm from the South. I'm from Georgia, and it's just beyond my comprehension that in 2026, when we have so many crises facing us as a species, like our survival is grandly threatened right now. And what are these old, small-minded, weak, uneducated white men doing? They're taking away the right for people of color to have representation in the government. I mean, I think we're ready for these guys to be done, right? All these old, racist, sexist, patriarchal, small-minded, failing upwards their whole lives, white men who've contributed nothing. They've built nothing. They've created nothing. They've helped no one. All they've done is cheat and lie and steal their way to wealth and power, because they're decrepit, disgusting people. And their days are over. I think it's time for us to all decide that that's the case. So we're in a dark moment, but I got to tell you, the people will rise. They're already rising. And if you think the civil rights movement was something back in the 60s, I think it's going to be something even bigger in 2026. I don't know about y'all, but I'm ready. And I'm standing with them every second of the day. So my heart goes out to every person of color in this country. And I apologize on behalf of white people who are small-minded and ignorant and full of hate. And that's not who I am. And I just want everyone to know that. My heart breaks. And I can't believe.
So there you go. Heartbreak, heartbreak, heartbreak. So back to this Clarence Thomas person. Because Clarence Thomas got on the Supreme Court, his beliefs stopped being personal opinions. Now they become laws. And one place it's really showed up is voting rights. Now, you already know black folks fought hard for this right to vote. People marched for it, as she said, got beat up for it. Some people died for it. This wasn't some little political disagreement. This was life and death. And because so many states, especially in the South, had a history of blocking black people from voting, the government created protections inside the Voting Rights Act. Basically saying, hold on now, before you change voting laws, we got to make sure you ain't trying to discriminate. That's all it said. That protection mattered. Now then comes a major Supreme Court case, Shelby County versus Holder, and this is the case that changed that. The court weakened one of the strongest parts of the Voting Rights Act, a protection called pre-clearance. Basically, certain states with history of discrimination had to get federal approval before changing voting rules. Sounds reasonable, right? It's got to just show it to us. But Clarence Thomas, he actually wanted to go even further. The court, he basically said, let's get rid of it, even more of it. And that's where a lot of people, especially in the black community, started asking, wait a minute, how does a black man from the segregated South look at voting protections and say, nah, we don't need this anymore. We don't need it anymore. Now, just to be fair, he thinks times have changed, and they have. But, Clarence, you've been hanging around your little white friends too long. You don't know nothing about what goes on in black circles. I doubt you even read or care. Stuff is still happening. These people are coming out of the woodworks again. They're coming back. Because the country is getting so diverse, they are about to become the minority, so they're coming back, and they're coming with a strategy, and that strategy is to get all this stuff out of the way so that they're back in power. Right? So Clarence believes those protections are based on old problems. What old problems, Mr. Thomas? And shouldn't automatically continue forever. That's his argument. But critics say, old problems? When people are still fighting over voting access today, polling place closed, we are still redistricting. And let me let you hear what Simone Sanders said that they did in, is it Tennessee or Kentucky? Listen to this.
Hey, everybody. I have some news.
Not that one. Show you. This is the one.
Who made the point that like he doesn't have to take over a polling place, right, doesn't have to like start another insurrection. It's never going to look again like it looked on January 6th, right? They're always learning. They're becoming more sophisticated. They're learning from their own selves. And the way in which they are going to do this, when I say they're trying to steal an election, they're being aided and abetted politically. In Tennessee, not only did they take away the district in Memphis, okay, they also passed a rule in the state legislature that said they don't have to notify people when they change where the polling places are now. So now we don't even have to tell you where your polling place is. So when people go to the ballot box on election day, they will be going potentially to a polling place that doesn't even exist anymore. No one told them how. That is how they steal an election.
So you see what I'm saying, Mr. Thomas? This stuff is still happening. Our voting elections have been pretty secure these years, but Republicans continue to try to make it harder for people to have their basic right just to vote. But you want to turn all this off because you said that these are old problems. No. Trump wants you to have your freaking passport to vote. Why? Listen, people. Listen. Those of you that can listen and understand what's going on, you got to understand what's happening. I mean, they're making it so that there's not a lot
You
of
made the
polls.
point that like he doesn't have to take over a polling place.
I'm sorry. They're making it so that they're not giving as many polling places. They're giving black neighborhoods not as many polling places. They're closing them down, so you have to stand in long lines. And of course, what does long lines do? It deters people from voting. But you know what, baby? Black people gonna stay in line to the end. That ain't gonna work with us. They're trying everything they can to manipulate the vote because the people have changed. A lot of people have changed. But this sector, So let's just talk about that. What I did was I went and I said, I need to find out what is the percentage of white voters? What is going on? How much longer do we have of this? And what are the trends showing? So I looked up white voters and I wanted to see how they vote, pretty much. All right, so of registered voters, is this, let me make sure that's not too far down. Is that all of that? Oh, that's right. Right here. Okay, hold on. White voters. Now, according to a major 2024 analysis of registered voters by the Pew Research, about 55% of white registered voters identify with or lean toward the Republican Party. About 44% identify or lean toward the Democratic Party. So that's stat number one. Most white people vote Republican. So that's why with Democrats, black people who are almost 100% vote Democrat, we're the ones that get Democrats elected. Because as you can see these numbers, white Democrats cannot win elections. They have to have the minority of black people. They have to have that black vote. I won't even say Latinos and all that. I'll say they got to have the black vote. Because we vote pretty much total Democratic, okay? So that's one stat you have to look at there. And then let's look at this next one. Let me see. I got to move that up a little bit. Okay, so here. Those numbers include leaners, which are independents who consistently vote or lean toward one party, which is how most political research measures. Among white college graduates, Democrats do better than among whites without college. White voters without college degrees lean more Republican, while college-educated whites are more politically mixed. Now, white voters, they're not a monolith, just like black voters aren't. Age, gender, education, religion, and geography matter a lot. For example, white urban voters tend to be more Democratic, while white rural voters tend to be more Republican. And you probably know that trend already. Okay, so let's see. Next slide. Overall, white registered voters, Republican lead 55%, Democrats lead 45%, white men versus white women. We already know that. White men lean more Republican, 58 to 60%, and white women are 51 to 53%. And the key takeaway is white women is much more politically divided than many people assume. They still lean Republican overall, but a smaller margin than white men. So, y'all still vote Republican all through and through, pretty much, okay? Now, let's look at it by age. And let's see, white voters by education. White voters without a college degree, that's Trump land. 60 to 65%, and they vote Republican, pretty much. White college graduates, they tend to vote 48 to 52% will vote Republican. And then white postgraduate degrees, 40 to 45%. So the non-takeaway is this. Non-college white voters are the backbone of the modern Republican strength. College-educated whites are much more mixed, and whites with graduate degrees often lean Democratic. That's why they call us elitists, because people go to school. What's so elite about going to school? All right. And in areas, white rural voters, 66%, suburban voters, 57%, and white urban voters, 48%. Urban white voters are much more Democratic than rural white voters. Suburbs are the battleground. Those are your independents and what have you. Okay. Let's see. Next study. Older, this is by age. White voters by age. Older white voters, 50 plus, lean more Republican. This is the one I wanted to show you. While younger voters, 18-29, are much more split and lean more Democratic than older whites. Millennials and Gen Zs are less Republican in older generations of white voters. In the actual 2024 presidential election, among white voters who turned out, Trump got 55%. And Harris got 43%. And that's the actual of what happened there. All right. So they lean more Republican, most definitely. But the young kids don't care about all this stuff. So let's see here. Of these numbers shown, that white America is not politically monolithic. Roughly 4 out of 10 white voters are Democratic. In some categories, urban, college educated, younger white Democrats are near parity or ahead, but the Republican advantage remains strongest among older, rural, and non-college white voters. Okay, that's our danger game right there. Right there, that little demographic. That's the one that's causing all the havoc. All right, and this is by, I did a thing by Latino voters, which I don't know what they are. So just to go through that. Mexican American voters are more Democratic. This is just on Latinos. Puerto Rican voters are strongly Democratic. Dominican American voters are Democratic. Cuban American voters are more Republican. And Venezuelan American voters are mostly Republican. And South Texas, Florida Latino voters are more GOP competitive. So you got all these different things. We're not a monolith on how we vote, but still, the white voter is the one that usually makes the elections. And those are the ones we've got to woo all the time. We have to. Okay, so let's see. Going through this slide here. White voters lean 44% Democratic and 55% Republican. Latino voters vote 61% Democratic and 39% Republican. And black voters vote 85 plus Democratic. And lately, it's about 15% for black voters, which is a lot, that have gone Republican. We need to get y'all back. So one of the biggest political stories of the last decade is that Latino voters are becoming more politically divided. Democrats still lead overall, but Republicans have gained ground by emphasizing issues like the economy, inflation and border security, entrepreneurship, and culturally conservative values. At the same time, many Latinos still strongly support Democratic positions on healthcare, immigration, labor, and social programs. Let's see how things pan out, because we've been getting election results from the primaries, and guys, Donald Trump's candidates are still winning. This is why I know the South has not changed. Donald Trump endorsement candidates are winning. It doesn't matter that his approval rating is almost down to 20-something. He's not done anything he said he's going to do, because they want a leader like Donald Trump that's going to be their leader that they want. They don't care about their interest, because their interest is being in the supreme lead. They want their race to be like they are now. So it doesn't matter how much he tanks our economy or gets us into wars. They're going to still vote for him. It's facts. That's what's happening right now. That's what's happening right now, guys. And I know it's a bummer. So that's that. So these voter ID laws is what's really is polarizing this country. The question is simple. Were black voters being diluted politically in these states where they're redoing the maps? Were they? Were they? I mean, the court actually sided with black voters, but Clarence Thomas dissented. Again. And once again, civil rights found themselves asking, why does Clarence Thomas so often land on the opposite side of modern civil rights? And honestly, that's one of the central questions of this whole conversation. We cannot talk about Clarence Thomas and not know that he does that on every civil rights thing. He votes the wrong way. The wrong way. I mean, and this guy is not the most moral, upstanding guy. I mean, he's been like targeted for ethics problems and things of that nature. And then let's not even talk about the Anita Hill thing. You know, that was a mess. I still believe he did everything he said because he just looks like it. He's got scary eyes to me. Like he lies all the time. But I don't know him. Yeah. So guys, those are the things that are going on here with the Voting Rights Act. And the reason I showed you all the white voter statistics is because until we get rid of that older genre of voters, which I don't think we're ever going to change their mind, this country is not going to change. But as years go forward and we start to see a change in demographics and ages, then we may see a change where those laws wouldn't matter. But right now, as long as those people are on the face of this earth, we need those Voting Rights Acts and laws to stay in place. We just do. We do. Okay. So now I want to listen to this video on this one guy. When they were redrawing the Louisiana maps, he came with it's a one little black guy, speaks out against, and they had a town hall meeting where they were upset about the new maps in Louisiana. So listen to this brother, because he makes some great points. Here we go.
Y'all can give us less than 0 seats, you would do it. Y'all do this under the orders of somebody that said the Civil Rights Act was harmful to white people, that it caused reverse racism. RFK said that black children are overfilled on antidepressants and that they need to be reparented on different forms, all of them. Pete Hegseth constantly brings Doug Wilson to the Pentagon to give a prayer service. Doug Wilson is the same pastor that said that slave owners were on strong spiritual ground. I don't have no belief in no morality on anybody that followed Donald Trump. If you wasn't with this map, you wouldn't be underneath this president. You wouldn't be in your party. You would stand up, you would stand against it, you would speak out about it. So as far as I'm concerned, if you here as one of these Trump Republicans, you already showed us who you are. You showed us what you want to do. And I believe the country as a whole is rebuking your party. Y'all are in a death spiral. That's why y'all have to redistrict. That's why y'all have to cheat. That's why Trump got to go to Texas and say he entitled to 5 more seats. It's because y'all know what y'all doing is abhorrent. We letting our people die in Iran based on false pretense that Tulsi Gabbard and Joe Kent say it ain't real. Y'all okay with all that. So I'm positive y'all gonna be okay with the maps. But the beautiful thing is, the children that y'all have made and the people that's younger than y'all don't support none of this racism that y'all want. The MAGA party is the last breath of the Confederacy. And I'll be happy to see millennials and Gen Z bury y'all. There will be no more of your party. The midterms gonna come, y'all gonna get wiped out. Trump gonna get dragged out of the White House, and I'ma love every second of it. Because y'all loved every second of the suffering that he caused to everybody in this country. And worldwide, we starve in Cuba. We bomb Nigeria. We holding Zimbabwe and Zambia hostage for their minerals. We don't want to give them aid support. The pro-lifers that say all life is special, y'all letting kids die of AIDS. What part of your Bible say that? Point out the scripture. I think everybody would love to see it. And we would love to see y'all in the midterms.
All right, he was quite poignant about what he felt and what he believed. And the people are upset. They're upset, and I don't blame them. I really don't blame them. All right, it's time for TJ Speaks. This is one of my favorite creators, but he's going to talk about the MAGA cult and put some perspective on that. Y'all listen in, and we can chat about it.
One thing the Trump administration is really good at, and I mean disturbingly good at, is making people who don't actually know much feel like they know everything. And I don't mean that as an insult, I mean it literally. They take people who have been failed by education systems, economic systems, failed by opportunity, and they tell them, no, you're not behind, you're ahead. You see what everyone else is too blind to see. And that's powerful. The feeling is addictive. They do it through what's called conspiracy thinking. They say, if there's documents, then they're fake. If the courts looked at it, then it's rigged. If you saw a video, it's taken out of context. And instead of reality being something we can all look at together, reality becomes something they get to explain to you. So now you're not wrong, you're enlightened. You're not confused, you're a part of a group that gets it. So when someone says, yeah, he said that, the response is, that's not what he meant. When someone shows proof, it becomes, that's actually not what happened. And all of a sudden, people who have never questioned a source in their life are instantly experts. They are convinced they're smarter than scientists, judges, and journalists, people who spent decades doing the work. And for a long time, this made me angry, genuinely angry, because my first instinct is to be mad at the people who still support this and say, how could you possibly look at all of this and be okay with it? But then I step back and I'm like, all right, TJ, maybe it's not that simple. Most people aren't evil. They're just scared. They're just struggling. They've been lied to for a long time. And when someone like Trump comes along and tells them, you're right to be angry, and I'm the only one that can fix it, that works, especially if you feel ignored or left behind. But here's where it changes for me, because there is a line. This administration doesn't just misinform people. It uses cult dynamics. And I'm not name calling. I'm not exaggerating. This has been studied. Cult leaders use the same patterns every time. Absolute loyalty, distrust of all outside information, redefining reality, and framing disagreements as an attack. Believe what I say, not what you see. Trust me, not evidence. And when you lay that framework over how this administration talks to its supporters, it fits completely. So now I'm sitting with moral conflict where it's like, okay, are these people victims? Because cults target people who are vulnerable, undereducated, isolated, and desperate. And when someone promises lower costs, easy answers, and sense of belonging, of course people want to believe it. Of course they need to believe it. But here's the part I can't get past anymore. We are not living in the past. You're not locked in a compound. You are not cut off from information. You have the internet in your pocket. You can fact check anything. You can read court rulings. You can look at primary sources. But they don't. They choose the same network every night. They choose the same podcasts. They choose the same voices that tell them exactly what they already want to hear. And at some point, that stops being ignorance and starts being a choice. And that's where I lose my sympathy, because I don't want to believe people are evil. I really don't. I have friends, real people who I care about, who get genuinely hurt and ask me, so what, you think I'm evil? And I hate that question. I really do. But the honest answer is this: you are fundamentally wrong. Because supporting Trump today, knowing what we know, leaves you with two options, and neither one is flattering. Either you are willing to excuse cruelty, corruption, and the active dismantling of democratic norms, or you have completely abdicated the use of your brain and succumbed to accepting anything this administration says without any proof. And I need to be clear, this isn't about conservative values. I've disagreed with conservatives my entire life and still respected them. This conversation used to be about policy, taxes, budgets, and how big or small you think government should be. This today is not that. This is different. This is about power. This is about testing how far you can bend the rules and exploit loopholes and normalize abuse before the system breaks. This is about loyalty to a person instead of accountability to a country. And you don't need to work in government or live in some political bubble to see it. Anyone who understands how democracy functions can see it. Anyone paying attention can see it. The people still defending this at the highest levels aren't doing it because they care about conservative principles. They are doing it because loyalty benefits them. Control benefits them. And if you still can't see that, I can't keep walking you through it. Because when you ignore credible sources, dismiss expertise, and constantly feed your own confirmation bias, that's not thinking for yourself. That's choosing comfort over truth. We are at a point where you've learned how to source. You know what credibility is. You know the difference between journalism and entertainment. You just decided it didn't matter because questioning it would be harder. And if you're okay with that, then you have to own whatever comes with it. That's just my thoughts. It's crazy to think how many people fell for this.
All right. That was TJ Speaks. I love his little take on everything. So yes, he's on TikTok and Facebook and everything else. So, there's been this recent there has been I don't know what it is. Is it a law? Anyway, whatever it is, Trump has managed to get $1.777 billion for people who have been wronged by the justice system, untargeted by the justice system. And that's going to be him because he wants out of that. But he's written the document, and I hope somebody challenges this document because it seems out of order of how they did the whole thing. But listen to her, and she'll explain it to you some more.
Hey, everybody. I have some news, and it's not good. The Justice Department's settlement with Donald Trump is even worse than we knew. It turns out there was a secret part of the agreement that was hidden from us when it was announced yesterday. I just reviewed it, and I am struggling to find words to tell you how catastrophic and corrupt it is. I'm Liz Oyer, the former pardon attorney for the Department of Justice. Here's the deal. Todd Blanche, in his official capacity as acting attorney general, signed this one-page document right here. It's called a release of claims. And here's what it does. It signs away all claims against Donald Trump on behalf of the United States. In other words, it says that Trump cannot be investigated, audited, or sued by the United States government in the future. That includes any government agency, the Justice Department, the IRS, etc. In effect, this will end the ongoing audits of Trump and his companies. But that's not all. It forfeits our right to collect any taxes owed by Trump and his businesses. It waives our right to try to reclaim the money he stole from taxpayers. It gives up our right to sue him for damages or to pursue really any legal recourse whatsoever against Donald Trump. And it binds the United States forever, meaning it applies even after Trump and Blanche leave office. And it's actually even worse than that because it's not limited to just Donald Trump. It also signs away all of our claims against his companies, his family members, and his associates. This is a staggering betrayal of the public trust. Even compared to other bad acts by this administration, this one stands out as especially unforgivably corrupt. Trump and Blanche are colluding together to give away our money, our rights, and our democracy. I'm sure there will be lawsuits that will argue that this agreement is illegal and unenforceable, and hopefully they will succeed. I'm not sure who will bring them or when, but I'll be keeping a close eye on it and I'll keep you informed. In the meantime, please help me sound the alarm. This is truly an emergency situation. Please share this with your friends and neighbors and make sure they understand how corrupt and unconscionable this is. Call your elected reps and demand that they take action, whatever you can think of to help defend our democracy. Thanks.
Okay, so that little document that Trump has written up that goes along with this money, this $1.77 billion that he has to give to people who have been totally wronged by the justice system, supposedly. And they could be some January 6ers to be able to get this money. But he's written an airtight clause to give him, he doesn't get any money, but he gets a full pardon. Okay? So basically, he's got it fixed so they can never, ever come after him after he leaves office, after he's raped us and made billions of dollars off of the American people, his sons and whatever else. But you know what? Some smart lawyer's going to challenge it because the document, it was written by the Attorney General's office. It's not a law. It can be challenged. It's just another legal document. So let's see what happens with that, because this is a mess, guys. This is really, really a mess. Yes, it is. So we'll see how that all pans out. You know, now Clarence Thomas isn't the only black Republican that is problematic. That's old Clarence right there. Ugh. Because Clarence Thomas isn't the only one. He isn't. Let's talk about some of today's black Republicans. And before somebody jumps in my comments, let me say this again. This ain't about telling black people they can't be conservative. This is not what it is. Black folks ain't all supposed to think alike. Never have, never will. We got black Democrats, black Republicans, independents, liberals, conservatives. That's America. That's freedom. But the question I keep hearing is how do some black conservatives support MAGA politics? That's a whole nother animal. That's the question. Yeah. So let's start with Tim Scott. Tim Scott. Yeah. Dear Tim Scott. This is Tim Scott. He is a senator from South Carolina. So he was raised by a single mother. He worked his way up, built success, and he truly believes America gave him opportunity. You can hear it when he talks. He believes in hard work, faith, personal responsibility, business ownership, and listen, ain't nothing wrong with those values, but here's where people start paying attention. Back in 2021, Tim Scott said something that lit social media on fire. He said, America is not a racist country. Woo! Now you already know. That hit different because some folks heard that and said, you're right, America has made some progress. We have. But a whole lot of other people said, wait a minute now. You mean to tell me after everything we're dealing with, housing inequality, wealth gaps, voter suppression concerns, policing issues, education gaps, we're going to just act like systemic racism don't exist? Excuse me. Now, to be fair to Tim Scott, his argument ain't that racism doesn't exist. Excuse me for saying ain't. He says racism exists, but he believes America isn't fundamentally racist. What does that mean? So instead of race-based programs, he thinks the answer is better schools, economic and opportunity, faith, hard work, and entrepreneurship. We know that. We know that. That's his worldview. And whether you agree or disagree, at least we understand what he's saying. I understand what he's saying, but that's a way to just get around it and stay Republican without making them mad. Yeah, that's the way of not making Donald Trump mad. So you got to say it like that. Y'all mess. Now there is Dear Byron Donaldson, which this one right here, oh my God, I think he's running for governor of Florida. He's a congressman now. He rocks hard with Trump, probably one of the strongest black MAGA voices out there, but he got himself in hot water after saying something about the Jim Crow era. He said during the Jim Crow era, the black family was together. Now, let's be honest. A lot of people heard that and immediately said, hold up, Jim Crow? The same Jim Crow where black people was segregated, terrorized, lynched, denied wrong voting rights? And then he later clarified and said that's not what he meant. He said he was talking about the family structure, not praising segregation. But still, people were uncomfortable. You said during Jim Crow, Mr. Jim Crow yourself there. And honestly, I understand why. because context matters, words matter, especially when you're talking about the painful history, and then you say that. Y'all are talking about Jim Crow, and you throw that up that things were better. I want us to really think up deeper, because this conversation ain't about Republicans versus Democrats. It's bigger than that. I'm trying to get you, my Anglo brothers and sisters, to understand about this kind of black Republican. We ain't with this. Do y'all get that? Whenever you talk about or diminish our civil rights struggle, we ain't gonna be with you. Period. Point blank, no. And these guys have opted to just say it don't exist. We're doing fine now. Everything is good now. No, it's not. We ain't ready for you to say that. And when the time comes ready, we will tell you. Y'all don't get to tell us that it's time. That's the problem. Okay, that's dear Byron Donaldson. And then y'all remember Ben Carson. Yeah, Mr. Ben Carson. I saw his movie. I thought he was a great person and everything else. And when he got into that cabinet, whew, God. So many civil rights groups say we still need protection, voting protections, programs that address inequality, systems that help repair generations of discrimination. That's one side. But black conservatives, they tend to say something their position is, we're not against civil rights. We just think civil rights today should look different. Safer neighborhood school. What does that got to do with civil rights? Lower taxes, business ownership, religious freedom, and economic opportunity. We want all that too. That's their argument. And for many of them that line up with MAGA politics, even if critics believe MAGA politics hurt black communities, they still somehow can say that. I don't get it. How do you celebrate civil rights movement, celebrate Dr. King, celebrate John Lewis, celebrate the Voting Acts Right Act, when many of those same protections for people fought for are now being challenged? How do you? That's the question I wrestle with, because people bled for those rights, died. People lost jobs for those rights, and now we're living in a movement where some people are saying we don't need those protections anymore. You don't get to decide that for us. You don't get to decide that. We don't trust you. Not yet. We've made great advancement. But that South, the Confederates are still their people. They haven't went anywhere. They may have aged a little bit, but they have not went anywhere. They're still there. So maybe the real question tonight is, have black conservatives redefined civil rights, or have they moved away from the spirit of the movement that got us there? And let me be clear. I'm not telling anybody what to think. That ain't my job. My job is to make us think, to ask questions, to challenge assumptions. But somewhere in the middle of all this, there's truth. And maybe, just maybe, we owe it to ourselves to stop blindly following political parties and be yourself. If you believe in something, believe in something. Even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. You're a black Republican, but hey, civil rights is still at the top of your deal. That's fine. You can be conservative in both. There's nothing wrong with that. So whether you agree with Clarence Thomas, Tim Scott, Byron Donaldson, or whomever all these Republicans are, those conversations matter, because politics affects our everyday lives, our schools, our voting rights, our opportunities, our future, and we have to stop. We need to start having real conversations. Real ones. These are not our representatives. These are not our representatives. Do y'all get that? So that's the point I've been trying to make, and I've been wanting to do a whole show on black Republicans, but I don't know that I want to spend that much time talking about them, because some of the stuff they say is just, I can't get with it. It's hard to even talk to them. And a lot of times when they become Republicans, they get named certain things, you know. But there are some that don't, like Michael Steele. I love Michael Steele. He's conservative, but he's not gonna downgrade his civil rights. He's not dumb. So there you have it. So I hope that I have at least put you at a point where you understand what's going on with this country, guys. Basically, people who are not our hue, color, are telling us we don't need those protections of the Voting Rights Act anymore because times have changed. You guys have elected a black president. That's what the United Louisiana governor said. We don't need those protections. We've had Barack Obama. We don't do that stuff anymore. We're no longer racist anymore. We're no longer doing that. And switch to gerrymandering and knocking out all these black voting districts. You don't? I trust and pray that there'll be one day that I don't even have to talk about this stuff. I don't like talking about it. But you get so frustrated with our white brothers and sisters, the ones that, I mean, you have had a life that is different from none other. It changed. We had to make you change. I mean, you can just walk in the street and you see a bunch of white brothers and sisters. They just walk with authority. Ain't nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's got to be a way for us to clean this out. We're not going to change the minds of all these people overnight, guys. We're just not going to do it. But we have to figure out a way to live inside it where they are being truth and honest and fair to us as a people. That's the challenge. That is the challenge. So I want to thank you so much for joining me today on this podcast. I had a blast talking about this. And I want you to please, if you have any questions in the comments, leave me a comment. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what your thoughts are. And if you're not already following the podcast, please do follow the podcast. I'm available on all the platforms and social medias. It's Let's Talk with Carl E. Long. So I hope you have a wonderful week and a wonderful day. And stay informed. And don't stop this fight because this is an important one. It's one that we've got to win. Bye now.